Welcome to another episode of the Dynamic Thriving Podcast. This is season 2, which is Unmuted Voices. And I am Marianne Pack, your host, spiritual medium, author, publisher, and joy advocate, guiding you into all things life transformational. And today I have my beautiful guest, Elizabeth Hill, with me, and we are going to talk about her story of unmuted voices. Welcome, Elizabeth.
Oh, it's so good to see you, Marianne. I love having this be my first call of the day. Talking with you is such a joy.
Absolutely. I love it. I love it. I love it. So, again, we're talking about unmuted voices, but it's not necessarily a physical thing. You may be able to use your voice in different ways, but are you really expressing your life, expressing who you are in the world authentically and as your own sovereign, ruling and guiding your life and listening to your intuition and expressing it? So you may be really good expressing in words, but you may not use your voice, or you can, express life in different ways, but we're not always true to who we really are. And so this unmuted voices encompasses all of that. And we're going to jump right in, Elizabeth. And when did you realize that it wasn't safe to really speak up, and you needed to mute your voice? Well, when was that you kind of realized, ooh, this isn't safe? I've got to kind of pull back and play small here.
Well, I think I can think of a few different times in my life, but probably the biggest one was being raised as a Jehovah's Witness, where you really cannot express an opinion that differs from what the doctrine is. If you would express an opinion that was different, I mean, you'd actually be pulled aside and brought down to the basement with elders, and they'd say, okay, so some of your beliefs are, they are apostate beliefs. They would be identified as something dangerous. And then people would, you wouldn't be allowed to talk to you if it was something where you thought differently than what the belief system was, right? So that, and I don't think I really realized this until you asked the question that way. That's probably the first time that happened. Because before that, I was very, very loud, talking to everybody. I was the little kid when I was like 3 or 4 that talked to everybody I could see. And that's kind of the way that I was. And then gradually it did. Yes, I chose my things to speak up about. I did. And did talk back to some elders in certain circumstances. But that is the first time that I realized that, oh, this really isn't safe. I could lose all of my friends if I spoke out in this way.
Absolutely. I can relate to some of that with my story. But so what were those indoctrinated beliefs that really that you were taught that made you, what were some of those actual indoctrinated beliefs? Because for you it was on a religious side. Sometimes it's not religious at all. Maybe it comes from your family. You only do this a certain way and you have to live small in that box, or you suffer the repercussions. Or it might be your society or your culture. But what were those indoctrinated beliefs that affected you?
Well, I mean, a few things there are specific things that, like, no one could be bisexual or gay. And if you said that it was okay, that's not all right. Right. So it's, that's one thing. But it would be any kind of thing that was a doctrine that we like, if I said, actually, I think everybody goes to heaven instead of the 144,000 that, you guys have decided go to heaven. That's a thing that would have been, no, you can't believe that. That's not what we teach. But I think it's more of, there's some more like cultural things that were indoctrinated from there, and from my family too. My mother didn't work outside the home. And so I didn't really ever expect even though my father never gave me that, my father wanted me to be prepared to work, and he would bring me to work with him and things like that. But I still, as an adult, feel guilty when my children are here and I'm working. And it's
Mhm.
ridiculous. Like, I need to take care of my family. I should feel good that I'm able to do that in the way that I do. But also, this idea that having money is bad is
Mhm.
something that's come up for me. That's a definitely indoctrinated, like, oh, if we have money, we feel bad that we have money and we should just give it away, which is coming from a loving place of giving money away, but not if you're not taking care of your home and using it for, good things. And so I had to kind of shift that realization too of, oh, I do good things when I have money. It's okay for me to have money. Like, it's good. It doesn't need to be just flowing out of me. Right. So,
Yeah, I so relate to that because that, mommy staying home actually was very, you know, in my family, in the way my family interpreted the religious beliefs, that mommies were supposed to stay home. Daddies were the only ones who were supposed to work
mm,
and make money. So mommies don't make money. Mommies stay home and take care of the kids and the hubby and all that. So yeah, shifting that has been really difficult for me to allow myself as a woman, as a mother, as a wife, that I'm allowed to make money.
mm, mm.
And so, yeah, so I understand some of that indoctrination of how that could make you play small.
And
So,
yeah, so that also makes me think of, um, there was a real culture around not going to college and not going to
mhm,
school, like not preparing, which actually, as an organizational standpoint, when you look at it, that's making a whole group of people that are just dependent on you, like the
mhm,
structure of the organization, to learn, right? And so I wasn't preparing, even though I come from a very educated family. I come from a family that actually was, my great grandfather was president of a college, and a lot of the family worked at the college, right? So on my father's side, very educated. And but I was not to go because there was like a pride in not going, that we
mhm,
didn't need it, that somehow we work like low jobs, and that, God loves us for that or something.
mhm. Yeah,
Um, yeah.
yeah.
So
Yeah, exactly. I mean, even my choice of college, I mean, I love the sciences,
mm,
biology and archaeology and stuff like that. As a little kid, I always said I wanted to be a mad scientist. And, but sciences were a no-no to really study because those people were all atheists and they would take you away from God.
yes.
And so I couldn't choose that for college. So I chose a Bible college and I have a biblical studies degree instead of what I really wanted to study, the sciences. So
Yeah.
I totally relate to that as far as
Yeah.
you know. So having muted your voice, how
Mm.
did it affect like your relationships? Again, we talked about finances, your career choice, maybe the college, your health, because health was a big issue for me. I created a lot of sickness in my body, or your spirituality. How did having to mute affect some of those things?
I mean, it definitely it selected, helped me select my career. I mean, when I went to college to work with children because I didn't
Mhm.
that, and I liked kids. My main goal was to have children as an adult. And I'm
Mhm.
glad that was my main goal because I have two fabulous children. But I didn't really even think about anything else, honestly, other than like growing up, having kids, and then serving God, right? Whatever, however that shook out, that was the path. And so I went to college for that, and then ended up leaving. About a year and a half in, I stopped being a Jehovah's Witness and got adopted into the theater family. I started doing theater, which was my absolute passion. I loved it so much. So I ended up changing my major a few times. And I did theater and psychology. It was a double major. I studied psychology completely to help figure out my brain and like what was going on in there, because I was severely depressed, unwell, wasn't sleeping, really had a lot of physical problems. I thought I was completely crazy. And the theater was so healing for me because it helped me. I didn't find my voice. I got to be different people. And at that time, I was just like, I don't even know who I am anymore. I had left this entire like system of belief. Like, who the heck am I? And being on stage and trying on these different people was really powerful, but it wasn't me really expressing. In some ways, I guess it was, I was able to express in that way. It's a very physical thing to be doing also, very physical. And the how we were trained at the school that I was at was very physical, like movement based. So we did a lot of that, which was very good for me from that standpoint. I've definitely had times too when I was married. So fast forward, like when I was married, I had physical expressions of like, there was a lot that I didn't say. Like I wasn't happy being married. Like we still have a great relationship with raising our children. Like we get along very well, but there was a lot of things that just weren't my needs. I couldn't even express what I needed or say it. And I got like all these sore throats because of it. I had like I thought they were allergies. I'm so anti-medicine, not anti-medicine, but I'll pop the vitamin C's all day long before taking something. And I was on steroids for these lung problems, and I know looking back afterwards, I went, of course I was having sore throats. I felt like I was trapped, that I couldn't say what I needed or wanted, or that it wasn't working. But I think, I chose professions like in the nonprofits. I went and got my master's in social work because I felt like I needed to help everybody on earth.
Yeah.
If I couldn't be a voice for me, I could be a voice for somebody else. So.
Yeah, that's what I hear from some of the folks. They were able to find their voice for others before they could end up finding their voice for themselves.
Right.
So it's almost like you have to practice a little bit before you can actually tune it in and use it for yourself. So you said that you left your religion in college, the first year after you were in college?
It was, so I had taken I think it was a year and a half off. Well, I didn't think I was going to college at all. That wasn't the plan. A year and a half after I graduated, I decided I did want to go to college. And so I started at a community college. And then about really a year into that, I started having major crises. And not like crises of faith, and I don't know that the influence, I wasn't hanging out with anybody from college. I don't think it was, I don't think it was that I learned anything that opened me up, and it could have been. But I ended up leaving then. And that was really just, huge. I did lose, I had a boyfriend who, actually now does religious trauma work with people. We left at the same time. We were in different congregations, but we left at the same time. So I had him, but that's it. And I'm grateful my mother still talked to me, because she could have decided not to. A lot of parents won't speak to their children when they leave. So I was grateful for that. But yeah, it was during college. And then I transferred to another school, and that's where I met Jim and Jamie Williams, who are two of my good friends. And Jamie, they both do work with my company as well. We did a lot of theater together, but I had to completely rebuild my life. And it was kind of, I was a little wild. It was just college, but I didn't know who I was. So It was a pretty wild time.
So, what were some of the aha moments? I mean, usually, I mean, sometimes there can be a boom, this is the moment, and I have to shift something now,
Mm.
or it's a culmination of little ahas all the way along the way to end up finding your voice and unmuting your voice. What were some of those? Or how did that happen for you?
Well, I think I'd like to talk about this during the pandemic because I
Mhm.
think that this is when I have gotten my voice as me. I'm going to start crying
There
now.
you go. That's all right. I
I'm
do it all
going
the time.
to Oh my God. I think, I'm 43 now, and I think it did take that long to get to that space. Um, but before the pandemic, I've been in like when I started doing life coaching. I've done a lot of different things in my career, all kind of oriented with making the world a better place with people, right? But different variations of that. And so, like 6 years ago, maybe I was maybe 7. Um, Decide, okay, I'm building this life coaching business, and I also want to do I was teaching yoga that time and meditation. I need to start meeting people. And I started going to networking meetings, which was absolutely terrifying for me. Absolutely terrifying. I'd gotten very introverted. I don't really know. Like, I feel like I'm an introvert because I need to take a lot of time by myself
Hmm.
on my own, and I also do feel really comfortable when I know everybody and they're my people that I want to go hang out with folks. But walking into a room where I don't know anybody, I can do it, but at that time before pandemic, I couldn't be myself. I was not myself.
Mhm.
I was like robot Liz, like, here I am, I will share nothing about me, and here's the little thing I do. I just couldn't express. And that's how I showed up when I met Dr. Davia and her Ladies Power Lunch. Like, that was one of the first ones that I got involved with. And gradually, I got a little bit more comfortable with people and talking about my business and things like that. I did a few lives, and yeah, I taught yoga for years, and I was very comfortable teaching yoga. It took me like 4 years to feel comfortable in front of a room, but that's because the whole room's got their eyes closed. I could do that. um, but that also is not fully me teaching yoga, because it is me, but it is like I'm guiding people through a thing,
Right.
right? So it's not me just having a conversation with people.
Mhm.
um, but during the pandemic, what happened was, oh, hello, we're all in Zoom, right? So we're all doing, I felt so comfortable in the comfort of my chair that I'm sitting in now with I don't have it on today because it's summer, but my cozy blanket that I could pet if I felt stressed during a meeting. I could deal with all my anxiety things in a way, and I could talk. And then so I started my podcast. I never in a million years thought I'd have a podcast. I never in a million years thought I'd be talking to you on this thing, right? Like, I never would have thought that I'd do this. And I just got gradually more comfortable. And now, as the world's opening back up in some ways, and we're doing more in person things, I found, so probably like this past 6 months, I can walk into a room. First of all, I might know a lot of the people there, so I feel more
Mhm.
comfortable, and I feel more comfortable being myself with them. I've gotten on stages and talked in on stage as me, not as Elizabeth Proctor from The Crucible, which I could pull off, right? Like, me standing up as me and just having real conversations with people without it feeling like, I was putting on something
Yeah.
else, or like had to hide parts of me or whatever. Um, so I'm grateful for that whole pandemic thing, because
Mhm.
for me, it's helped me grow and feel more comfortable in myself in a way that I don't know how it would have happened otherwise.
Mhm.
Um, and we don't need to find out. So
Yes,
that's
it turned out good for you. Yes,
it.
and that's it. I mean, there's so many times I think even during that pandemic time, um, if it wasn't, I mean, I know it adversely affected a lot of lives, but for me, I was that more solitary person.
Mhm.
But it did bring me out of my shell a little bit more because I did get to be on Zooms. I did get to start networking more with people that I would have never met, and expanded my peeps, my tribe, my friends. Um, so I enjoyed that, and like you, it was like, oh, I could stay in my cozy home, but I could still be with people.
Mhm.
And I could share ideas and share thoughts, and get a little more visible than I would normally in my little rural farm life.
Mhm. Yes.
So when you started to shift, what were some of the other things? Did you have the beliefs? Did you have to change some of the beliefs? Did you have to install new ones? As you were kind of moving out of indoctrination and moving into more of truly who you are and what sparks your soul and what resonates with you, you know, um, how did you become your own sovereign? How did you start living joyfully?
It is. I love this. So it feels like it's been a gradual unfolding, right, as throughout my life, and and I've shared this in several of my books. This idea of I feel like I've lived I don't know how many lives, like 7 different, completely separate lives as I've grown and changed, and it's all been a I mean, I feel like I get messages every day from my guides that, are just like there for me saying this isn't for you. I mean, I had a moment when I was in we call it the Kingdom Hall when you're Jehovah's Witness. That's where the church, what the churches are called. And I just went, there's silence. I was like, there's silence here. And I felt like this much as God is not here for you. And it wasn't that God wasn't here. It was like God is not. You don't find God here.
Mm-hmm.
You like I'm not talking to you here because you need to go somewhere else to find it, right? So I'm very grateful. Some people that leave that system of belief don't have a spiritual belief after. They hate religion. They hate, they come out not very well or healthy because of what leaving. They feel like they've left everything. I was able at that time to really shift into I read just everything I could get my hands on. Art of Happiness by the Dalai Lama helped me a lot. I found Thich Nhat Hanh very early that had Buddhist like thoughts about like how you meditate and approach each life as a miracle, like each day as a miracle. And so I found that. So I was constantly at that time having all these spiritual experiences. I'd be having the worst day going, I can't go on like this life. I can't go on. And then I'd see a giant rainbow across the sky and I'd say, okay, you got me. It's all right. Right. And um, I don't even remember the question you asked, but yeah, it has been a growing as I find my voice and allowing. I'm glad that I'm up for this life of allowing these changes. Like I did dissolve a marriage after 12 years, right? Like, and that was, I chose to do that. I have had relationships that I needed to dissolve also after that. Changing where we lived, moving and shaking things up over and over again, changing careers, leaving the nonprofit and, creating this business. And because I've been able to do that, like be willing to be like, okay, I'm getting this call to make books
Mm-hmm.
or this call to do this. And I've been willing to follow that, even if I didn't really know how it was going to shake out. My life is so much better, like 1,000 times better
Yeah.
now, living in my apartment in this old historic quirky building that I'm in with my two amazing teenage kids, and having freedom within that, is just so cool, right? Like, doing this work that I absolutely love every day.
Yes.
But if I hadn't been willing to like let everything fall apart over and over again, I wouldn't be here. And I'm so grateful to like pass Liz. I'm like, oh, Liz, good job. You did good.
Yeah. Well, and you just jumped ahead a little bit to the next question.
Jump ahead. It's what I do.
Because I always say our mess is our message. And so this mess that you went through, that you transformed and healed through,
Yeah.
Has become your message. So now how do you use your unmuted voice in the world today? I know, but I want you to tell everybody.
Oh, yes. So there is an expression, right? No mud, no lotus, right?
Oh,
so no, I love this expression so much. And I wouldn't be able to do what I do 100%
Mhm.
if I didn't have this experience of transformation in my own personal life and have thought, I mean, honestly, it's like the death of me over and over again, right? It's kind of creepy, but it is. And so when my days are talking to people every day about their things of their stories, their times that were challenging, and how they transformed and then helped other people from that place, right?
Yes.
So those conversations are, okay, bad stuff happened to us, or we did bad stuff ourselves, or sometimes a combination, right? Ownership of that. And I'm going to use what I learned from this to help other people, right? Mm-hmm. And so we publish books. I help them write them. Mm-hmm. I have a team of people that help get the books out. And we have podcasts. We're moving into doing some more videos and things like that, and events. So we're able to share people's stories. And I think that, like, people can publish books, right? Like, this is a thing that people can do. I think what differentiates what I do is that I'm able to be with people no matter what the story is, and actually hear it. It might be a lot of people that the first time they're telling the story is to me sometimes, or they tell me parts that, other people don't know and they aren't putting in a book, but I am that safe place for all of it. Yes. And I feel so grateful I can do that. Like, I make jokes that I'm a confessional. I make jokes that I'm a confessional. Like, you can tell me, I will absolve it, right? And I do recognize that there's a time and place for how people unmute their voices, yes. Right? So I don't ever pressure someone to be like, okay, well, this is your story. You get to tell all of it, and force them to tell all of their story in a book. Like, it's just not, it's unnecessary, right? And we don't need to do that to ourselves. Yeah. Right? People ask me, well, how much should I put in or whatever? And it can be a gradual thing. I've done this myself. So I've done many collaborative books, right, with different people. And I also get to write in some of the collaborative books. And I share a little story in one and a little story in another, right? So that I can be like, okay, now it's safe for me to talk about this story in public. Now it's safe for me to tell this story in public. And I like doing that for people too, because it's not like, you don't have to take this deep dive of unmuted voices and like do the TED Talk tomorrow about your childhood trauma, right? Like, it doesn't have to, it can actually be a safe thing. while you're pushing your edges a little bit each time.
Yes. Talk about the healing aspect that it comes from writing a book. I mean, what your clients go through as they, pour out some of this vulnerability.
Right, right. Yeah, and I know you know this from writing and from working with people. So it is a very special place when we can be that for someone, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So um, when people and they don't know that they're signing up for this, and I am a little hesitant. Like when people come and do a book, sometimes people do it for a healing process. Some people, I work with a lot of therapists, right? They think they're all they often and I have my master's in social work, so I'm in this book. They think I'm healed from this. I'm ready to talk about this now and tell this whatever. No matter what, when you go to write the story,
Yes.
it brings it all up again, and it does provide a space to heal it more, to realize. A lot of people realize things that, they think. I've had people that they come in kind of a victim-y place, which makes sense when you hear their stories, right? Like, oh, no, what? Oh man, these things happen. And then as they're writing, they actually come to a different place on that, which is really interesting to see. And then there's another level of healing when they go to tell the story. Because when you publish a book, when I first published my first book, I didn't want to talk about it. My family would ask me questions, and I was like, why are you talking to me? I don't want to talk about my book. I was very weird about it. So my next book, I got a little better at talking about it. But it's a whole other level of, the books we were putting out are about memoir, transformation, the darkest things we've been through, right? Yes. So it's when we get to share that story with the world holds it up with us. We don't have to hold it ourselves. Mm-hmm. And it's, so much freedom and light is available in that space.
Oh, totally.
So cool.
Totally. Yeah. That's always so, I love to hear those stories about, even, speakers that have been guests that have been on this podcast talking about unmuted voices. They'll peel back layers that they never dreamed they were going to talk about. And they'll tell me later, that wasn't the direction I thought I was going to go with my story.
Right.
It's just like another layer comes off, because we don't get a gold star or certificate and one and done. Here's your healed. You healed this area of life. So you got the certificate now. No.
Yes.
It's a journey. It's a constant, a spiral upward. Life is always a spiral upward. So we may come past that topic again, but we're at a higher level of healing. So then when we round the corner again, another layer gets peeled off and we go in a different direction. So I love that you are helping and holding the space for people to, share their story. Mention what your mission statement is, because I like your mission statement.
Oh, yeah. So we're making the world a more loving and peaceful place, one book at a time.
Yes. I adore that mission statement.
Yeah.
So this is how you can connect with Liz, greenheartliving.com. And it's also in the show notes for your convenience. If you have something and you feel a resonance with Liz, set up a call with her, talk to her, go look at her website, find her on social or make a comment here under the video and she'll get back with you. So I want to thank everybody for joining us, and thank you, Liz, for sharing your work with us and your story about unmuted voices, because I know that this is such an important topic in the world. And you can find our website at wearejoybooks.com for all of the books that we are also involved in and what is offered as far as authors to come and work with us too. But again, I'm going to put up Liz's greenheartliving.com. It's a beautiful website, and she's such a gracious. I worked with her to publish my first book, and then she has graciously allowed me to help her in her business as I'm training under her and learning and picking her brain and getting to know the publishing industry. So I thank you so much, Liz. I appreciate you.
Thank you. I'm very grateful for our partnership.
Yes, yes, yes. Do you have any closing words of wisdom you would like to leave us with?
Oh, just that if you feel called to write, answer that call. The world will give you every reason not to,
Yes.
right? It will give you millions of distractions. And please write the book that the muse is like sneaking up to you and saying, hey, here's the book. Because once you get that word back from people, once you've published and shared the story and people turn back to you and say, thank you for writing that, I needed that, every moment of writing is worth it.
Absolutely. I love that. So thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you, Liz. I appreciate you taking your time to share your life and your love with us. And remember, everyone, you are joy, looking for a way to express. So you may want to contact us and help you express it with words into a book. Mm-hmm. We appreciate you. Love you all. Thanks. We'll see you next time.